there, and welcome to another episode of What's Cooking at the Capitol with me, Adam. So glad to have you here in the kitchen today. I am Adam Mason. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm the State Policy Organizing Director at Iowa CCI Action Fund. We got a spicy enchilada for you today, but we are not cooking enchiladas. We're actually going to be making a dish called shakshuka. It is one that I like to have when I have breakfast for dinner. It's an egg-based dish. We got some tomatoes and some onions and stuff. So let's go ahead and get heated up here. So yes, shakshuka is a great little dish, and actually I want to give a shout out to Liz. This was a viewer suggestion today. Liz and I have traded shakshuka recipes before. So Liz, this one's for you today. It's actually going to be my brunch. I skipped breakfast this morning so I could have this after we get done cooking. Just threw some onions, some peppers on there. Gonna saute them for a few minutes. And while that's cooking, just want to give another quick shout out to folks down in Texas. If you have friends, family, our allies in Texas, we are thinking about you. We are, sending our warmest thoughts. We know that what's happening in Texas right now is it's climate change in action, and specifically, it's a direct result of deregulation in practice. So if we needed any other reminders about why deregulation is a bad thing, or about the challenges that climate change is bringing to our communities, we don't have to look very far. I'll give you one other quick little rant from the State House before we really get digging in on a couple key bills today. Growing up, The X-Files was one of my favorite shows, right? And around the CCI office, I'm one of the kind of like the technophobes that's a little bit concerned. I love technology. I love the fact that we can share this time together every week because of the power of technology. But it's also a good reminder that technology unchecked, deregulated in the hands of corporate power can also be a bad thing. And we saw the perfect example of this week up at the State House. A bill was introduced so that if somebody were to Google or search for abortion, the state would actually mandate that then they start receiving targeted advertisements, targeted messaging, dissuading them from abortion services. Now, this is nothing new. It's something that has been going on for a long time in terms of clinics that advertise health services and then try and steer you in another direction. But I think the combination of that really far right-wing political ideology mixed with the power of technology, and there's no sometimes it's I sound like the technophobe, but you talk about a pair of shoes, and the next time you get online, there's an advertisement for those shoes in the sidebar of your computer from any number of online retailers, right? This is serious, and it's why I think in terms of democratic control of our internet and making sure that we have data security for technology is a critical component of internet security that we need to be paying attention to. So enough about that. Let's actually get to what's cooking at the Capitol. I'm going to give these onions and peppers a quick stir. Let's see here. I'm also going to go ahead and add my spices. What's key to a good shakshuka is good spices. We're using cumin, some paprika, some oregano. And it's going to give it a nice, just kind of like not too spicy flavor. So got that going. So, a big focus of our work at CCI Action and of course our allies is focusing on what we need our government to do and what we believe it should do, right? We believe that government should work for people, not for corporate power, not for profits, not for the 1%, but for everyday people. And of course, right now, over the last year in a pandemic, as we face a polar vortex, it's pretty clear that we need government to be serving our people. And one of the things that as I was thinking about today's show, I started thinking back to, obviously we've talked a lot about the Green New Deal, comes from the New Deal back in the 30s, right? One thing we don't talk about enough actually is LBJ's Great Society in the 60s. And that was also, at the time, it was considered the war on poverty. And I know that we use war metaphors, fighting analogies a lot. But really, that's LBJ's coining of the phrase "a great society" encapsulates some of the stuff we were talking about. Now, some of those policies are still core to our safety net today. And we continue to see attacks on those safety net policies that do protect our communities, and as they've been whittled away over the last 10, 20 years, really since Reagan, right? What's really important, I think, for me is that, recognizing that as we are in this fight today, that we stand on the shoulders of giants, right? Folks that were doing the organizing in the 50s and 60s were talking about civil rights. They were talking about voting rights as they were talking about these economic safety net policies. They knew then what we know now, and that's that you can't have racial justice, you can't have worker justice, you can't have voter justice unless it's all connected. And so, that's a big part of our approach here at CCI Action. All of these issues are connected. The solutions are interconnected, and that's why we're fighting for a broad people and planet first agenda. Now, unfortunately, our opponents recognize that too, and that's why we see coordinated attacks on our voting rights, on racial justice, on worker rights, and on our safety net. So I'm actually excited today to really dig in, because we're just right at the tip of this polar vortex iceberg. So we're going to focus today on one big policy that's been being debated, and it's actually advancing at the State House, Senate File 389. I'm happy to have Luke Elzinga today with us from the Iowa Hunger Coalition, and he's going to dig in with us. Luke, thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Adam. And just for a little bit of background, the Iowa Hunger Coalition is a group with members from food pantries, food rescue organizations, other anti-hunger organizations, and just individuals who are passionate about ending food insecurity and hunger in our state. And one thing we've really been focused on this session is defending food assistance. It's the name that the state of Iowa has for SNAP, also previously known as food stamps. So if I use SNAP or food assistance interchangeably, just know I'm talking about the same program there. Senate File 389 does a number of things. First, it creates an automized computerized verification system for all public assistance programs. So that's food assistance, Medicaid, the Children's Health Insurance Program, TANF. And so for all of these programs, it would contract with a third-party vendor to run a number. This bill's, I forget how many pages long it is, but a lot of it is just all these different databases that this is going to be run against. And there's also a piece where folks will need to do an identity authentication. And so if you've ever maybe applied for a loan or something like that, and they have questions about, have you ever lived at this address in the past 7 years, those sorts of questions, folks will have to complete one of those too. And we see this as really a costly proposal. Last year, it actually passed out of the Senate, and the fiscal note estimated it would cost about $4.5 million a year to operate this system. And DHS actually spoke at the subcommittee on Monday and shared that they're pursuing an option that would be, far less costly. So it's something that the state, DHS is looking at a system that would be similar but would cost the state a lot less. We also think it would create, barriers for folks who are eligible but maybe struggle to navigate this system. Internet access, if they have limited English proficiency, we think those could be real barriers for folks who, again, are eligible for these benefits but just can't navigate this system. And so there's been a big focus on this automized verification system, and I think for good reason. But there's also a couple other pieces of this bill that would actually create stricter eligibility requirements specifically for food assistance. One of those would create an asset limit for food assistance. So households applying for food assistance wouldn't be able to have a little over $2,000 in assets. And I think one of the most problematic pieces of that is that there's an exclusion for one vehicle, but not more than that. So what this bill says is, hey, if you're applying for food assistance, and your household has more than one vehicle, we're not sure that maybe you need food assistance. We'll have to check the value of that second vehicle just to make sure. Children's savings accounts would be taken into account for this asset test. And actually, at the subcommittee meeting on Monday, a lobbyist from one of the groups that's been pushing this bill said that establishing this asset limit would remove a little over 50,000 people from the food assistance program. And, the latest data we have last month in January, there were a little under 300,000 people in Iowa receiving food assistance. So by their own numbers, this bill would kick 1 in 6 people who are currently receiving food assistance off the program. There's also another piece that would require custodial parents to cooperate with the child support recovery unit in order to be eligible for food assistance. So again, if there's a single parent who doesn't currently have a formal child support payment set up, this bill is going to say you need to do that if you are going to be eligible for food assistance. And at the Hunger Coalition, we really don't see a way that they could implement this piece of the bill that would not result in food being taken away from children and families. So just a really bad bill. It's, we've seen it last year. It passed the Senate and ultimately did not pass the House. So we're keeping an eye on it. There was a subcommittee meeting on Monday, and just about 24 hours later, it went to the full Commerce Committee and passed out on a party line vote. So, we're going to be making sure we let folks know when that's going to be up for debate, and are encouraging folks to contact their senators to oppose this bill.
Absolutely. No, and it's a good reminder that when they have complete control like this, they can move things as quickly as they want. And you mentioned that we saw this bill last year, something very, very similar. We're seeing these kinds of attacks on the safety net all across the country, not just here in Iowa. What do you think's behind that?
Well, it's not much of a secret kind of who's behind this bill. There's an out-of-state group, Opportunity Solutions Project, that has been pushing these bills for about 4 years now. And, they always have a lobbyist come in to speak, and they're the first ones to speak. And I remember one year, the chair of the subcommittee just started reading the bill and kind of just handed it over right to the lobbyist to explain what exactly it would do. And they pursue these types of quote unquote welfare reforms in other states as well. We've seen it in Kansas, in Wisconsin, in New Hampshire, and other states. It's not just limited to a bill like this, but they're pursuing work requirements for food assistance and Medicaid, drug testing for public assistance recipients. So that, they push a lot of these welfare reform bills in state legislatures and really provide model legislation. They're writing these bills and taking them to legislatures to run them through. Yeah.
No, that's exactly right. And it just occurs to me is that, we hear the Republican Party especially espousing these ideas that, big government's the problem. And really what they're doing here is they're making government not work. It's not the question of big government or small government. It's about who does government work for. And I think, if they can make government not work for people, it furthers that distrust in any government at all, instead of seeing government as part of the solution to ensuring that we all have equitable opportunities and the things that we need. So for the Iowa Hunger Coalition and for folks at CCI, what are the kinds of things that we should be focused on right now?
Ideally, we'd be focusing on making food assistance more available to Iowans facing food insecurity. We know that food insecurity rates have risen due to the pandemic and economic downturn and the derecho as well. So ideally, our state legislature would be focusing on ways to expand access to food assistance and other public benefit programs. There's measures that the state could do to do that, to kind of meet that goal, whether that's through increasing the eligibility for food assistance. There's a really great program called Double Up Food Bucks that kind of, if folks are using their SNAP benefits to purchase local produce, they can actually get a little more benefits by doing so. The state could be supporting anti-hunger organizations. But I think really at a deeper level, we want to see, I think everyone wants to see folks rise out of poverty. It's just a question of how we do that. And at the Hunger Coalition, we think that's through things like increasing wages, making healthcare more affordable housing, childcare, which actually we've seen some positive steps being taken this year to eliminate the childcare cliff effect, transportation. All these intersecting issues of poverty. We know hunger and food insecurity doesn't exist on its own. It's always tied to these other issues of economic justice and poverty. And so really, we'd like to see those types of things happen and make cost of living more affordable for folks, get wages rising. And, we would love for no one to have to rely on safety net programs, but we know that's not a reality right now. So we need to be protecting those programs and help making sure that we're getting folks the benefits they need to help them in their journey, and not just creating stricter barriers and eligibility requirements that keep people in poverty.
That's right. Well, like you said, it sounds like there's some momentum behind Senate File 389. Can you just remind our viewers what they can and should be doing to join and get in the fight on this and stop this bad bill in its tracks?
Yeah, so we're asking folks to reach out to Senate Majority Leader Jack Whitver and ask him not to take this bill to the floor. We're also asking folks to contact their senators and asking them to vote no on this bill. Like I said, it did pass the Senate last year, and I think it probably has a decent chance of passing the Senate again this year. So then we're going to be really focusing on the House. That's where we've seen these bills stopped in years past. This bill's a little unique. It's in the Commerce Committee. It was in the Commerce Committee on the Senate side, which it really does not belong there. We think it really belongs in Human Resources. And in years past, we've seen it referred to the House Human Resources Committee. We're not sure if that will be the same this year. We're not really taking anything for granted. But another thing folks could do is reach out to their representatives as well, because we know that, we're going to need to be kind of bringing the fight to the House probably if this does pass the Senate. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again for the great work that you all at the Iowa Hunger Coalition are doing, the critical work, and for joining us today to really shine a light on what's going on here with Senate File 389. I appreciate it, Luke.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So building off that, Luke gave us some good food for thought. And again, as I was saying at the top end of the show, these attacks are coordinated. Luke mentioned housing. One of the bad bills that we're fighting up at the Capitol that is really putting especially low-income folks at risk is a Senate attack on what's called rental vouchers. This is the state preempting communities from adopting ordinances that stop landlords from refusing to accept federal housing vouchers. Essentially, it's giving landlords permission to choose, to start profiling who lives in their apartments. And we know that our state is focused, is facing an affordable housing crisis. And so this is one more way that the Republican Party is whittling away at affordable housing. We've seen it on unemployment bills. There's a Senate Study Bill 1172, House Study Bill 203, a very similar attack to what we just heard about in terms of Senate File 389. The Republican legislature moving a bill forward that would cut back on unemployment benefits during this global pandemic when we've seen unemployment numbers rise. It would institute a 1-week waiting period. So when you get laid off or you get fired, now you have to wait over a week before you can get your benefits, before you can even apply. It would also cut those benefits in terms of the amount, and it would take away 13 weeks of eligibility. Similarly, again, this promotion of the notion of fraud or abuse of our safety net, Senate Study Bill 1194, the very same kinds of things that we just heard about, where the Department of Workforce Development would be forced to do background checks and to work with other state and federal agencies to try and determine if people are abusing the system. Again, these ideas that fraud is rampant through these safety net programs is unfounded, and we know it's not what the real problem is right now. And of course, we talked about how it's connected to voting and voting rights. We had been fortunate so far that we hadn't seen the kinds of attacks on voting this year that we've heard about in other states until this week. Go figure. So we saw kind of a sneak attack. House File 590 and Senate File 413, introduced early this week, rushed through the subcommittee process, passed out of committee yesterday, now eligible to come up for votes on the floor. The debate on these in subcommittee and committee was talking about the big lies that we've heard about voter fraud across the country and stolen elections, things that did not happen. In fact, if anything, we should be celebrating the record voter turnout here in Iowa, not trying to attack it. House File 590, Senate File 413. Let's give our shakshuka a stir here. Oh yeah, that's looking good. I think it's actually, we're gonna come back to voting in a second. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna grab an egg. We're gonna drop it in our shakshuka, and it's just gonna cook in there. I'm gonna go ahead and put the cover back on. This is gonna be good. House File 590, Senate File 413. Listen to everything that this would do. It's going to reduce early voting, which they reduced a year ago from 40 days to 29 days. It's going to shorten that early voting period from 29 days down to 18 days. It's going to prevent our county auditors from sending out absentee ballots until mid-October. It would bar those county auditors from mailing absentee ballot request forms for any reason. Again, last year we had record voter turnout because our Secretary of State said we should mail absentee ballot requests to every voter. And they want to take away the ability of auditors to do that to anybody. It would bar me from returning an absentee ballot for my neighbor, all right? Unless you're actually an immediate family member or a caregiver, you would be not allowed to return absentee ballots for folks. And it would limit ballot drop boxes to 1 in a county. Now, here in Des Moines, it takes me about 10 minutes to get downtown. But growing up in Storm Lake, I know that it could take 20, 30 minutes to get to my county seat. And if that's the only place that there's a ballot drop box, this is going to make it harder for people to vote in our state. And it's just wrong, period. It's just wrong. So we've got a lot of work cut out for us next week up at the Capitol. We're going to be turning up the heat because there's only 2 more weeks until that first funnel when bills have to be out of their originating committee. That's also going to help us focus and prioritize our efforts. It's really going to whittle down the number of things that we're still supporting, and of course the bad stuff that we're trying to stop up at the Capitol. The voting bill that I mentioned, tune in Monday because there's going to be a hearing in the House of the Iowa House of Representatives to again have a public hearing, and it's our chance as the public to weigh in on the House floor with these legislators. So tune in Monday afternoon. You can find more information on that, either in our email on Monday or on the state legislature's website. Next week, we are going to see a lot more committee action and probably some actual debate on the House and Senate floors as they continue to move these policies forward. So again, tune in, sign up for our email on Monday. We're going to have some targeted action alerts for you when your voice, your phone call, your email will be most important. So can't stress that enough. We'll give you a look at the old shakshuka here now. We got a nice thick kind of tomato gravy with kind of a poached egg in there. I'm excited to eat lunch. So thank you for tuning in to What's Cooking at the Capitol today. until next week, stay fed.